history in a few words. You'll read the Bible, Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Then we read in John, St. John chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. I got a little song now I want to sing you, also of the history, which is called History in a Few Words. Adam was the first man that ever was invented. He lived all alone and he never was intended. Made him out of mud as the days gone by. Hung him on the fence to see how he dry. Along come Eve and they both had a battle. Shoved her up a tree to get himself an apple. She got two and they both fed one. Ever since then, allowed trouble begun. In come Noah and he stumbled in the dark. Found himself a hammer and he built himself an ark. In come the animals two by two. The hippopotamus and the cake kangaroo. In come the lion, in come the bear. In come the elephant without any hair. 40 days, 40 nights, the rain began to drop. Made the old lark go flippity-flop. Jonah went a sailing and when he had an order, both got to rocking and throwed him in the water. Long come a whale, you bet he was a squirter. Gobbled Mr. Jonah right out of the water. 3 days, 3 nights, the whale swam around. Jonah on the inside, he began to pound. Then the whale's stomach began to get rain. Throwed Mr. Jonah out on the bank. In come Columbus, who was dead broke. Discovered America, thought he was croak. In come deer with a battleship name, headed for a certain part of Spain. Ship was in Savannah, a little Spanish town. Told his boys, we'll just hang around. In come the Spaniard and blew up Maine. United States then whooped Spain. In come a Kaiser to get at your France. No more turning back with bullets in his pants. In come a Henry with a hammer and a board. Took himself a can and made himself a board. Times got good and people got busy. People had money to buy themselves lazy. Ford got old and Henry got busy. Took another can and made a lady out of Lizzie. In come Hoover was economical to talk. Can't get a car, now we'll have to walk. Mighty hard time, everybody knows. You better sell your car and get yourself a cow. I've told you the history from Adam on down. Sometimes we're up and sometimes we're down. The only thing to do is do the best you can. For brother, there's been trouble ever since the first man. Now I'll tell you a little bit about a burglar man. Burglar man. I'll tell you a story of a burglar man who went to rob a house. He crept in the winter just quiet as mouse. About 9 o'clock the old maid came in. I'm so tired, she said. Thinking all was well, she forgot to look under the bed. She pulled out her teeth in the old glass eye, the hair off top of her head. The burglar man had 19 fits as he came from under the bed. She drew her revolver from her drawer and grabbed him around the neck. Says, burglar man, you marry me, I'll shoot off the top of your head. He looked at the teeth in the old glass eye and he had no place to scoot. He says, for Lord's sake, woman, shoot. Now I'll tell you a little story about a hunting, bear hunting. Only bear hunting that I ever went, that was back several years ago, back when they had the old muzzle guns, and you had to load them things up. You know, you had a little horn, you poured the powder in, and had your wad and all that you fixed up, and you had to put your cap in there first. And so I loaded that thing up going to bear hunting with an extra load. I got my cap in, I put quite a bit of little extra powder in, poured it in, put a big wad in, packed that real good, and got me a big ball of lead and put in there, and I put me another wad in there, and I packed it real good. And I just give it a real good packing. So I shouldered up this old gun, and I went down on the creek. Now, that's where you're supposed to find that bear. He's been making tracks down there, and so I went down there, and sure enough, there he was, right across the creek, looking right straight at me. Well, I looked over to my right, and there was a rattlesnake coiled up, and it looked like he was just ready to strike. So I heard something up over, and I looked up, and the squirrel was barking at me. And so I looked around then to my left, and there was a big covey of birds come with their heads sticking straight up. And so I didn't know hardly what to do. I knowed if I shot that bear, that rattlesnake would strike me, and if I shot the rattlesnake, I didn't have but one load, so I had to make my mind up quick what to do. And so I said, well, the bear would get me if I killed a rattlesnake. So I had a big rock there, and I aimed at that rock, just centered it, and I tried to figure out which, if that ball split open, part of it would go to that bear and part to the rattlesnake. And sure enough it did. I fired off, and that there gun hit the bullet or lead hit that big rock and split open, and part of it come over and just clipped that rattlesnake's head off, and the other part just hit that old bear right solid in the head, and he fell over dead. And so my collarbone flew out and killed that squirrel that's chipping at me overhead. And so the forearm come off of this muzzle load and just mowed them 12 heads off, and that gun is such a heavy load, it kicked me in the creek, and I come up with a big boot full of fish. So that was the luckiest hunting that I ever heard of anybody doing. Have you ever heard any hunting any luckier than that? That was a good hunt. Thank you. All the collie deer at 9:30. Sidney Adden was a prisoner and he was on time. Mounted to the bar with his pistol in his hand. Sent Judge Mackey to the promised land. Just a moment later the place was in a roar. The dead and the dying was lying on the floor with a 38 special and a 38 ball. Sidney backed the sheriff up against the wall. The mountaineer was staring him right in the face. He turned to the window and then he said, just a moment more and we'll all be dead. Mounted to his pony and away he did ride. Friends and his nephews riding by his side. All shook hands and swore they'd hang before they'd give up to the foreman gang. But Sidney hadn't wondered and he traveled all around until he was captured in the western town. They taken poor Sidney to the station with a ball and chain. Put poor Sidney on the eastbound train. He mounted in at home at 11:41. Met his wife and daughter and his two little sons. They all shook hands and knelt down to pray. Said, oh Lord, don't take our papa away. Then the people gathered from afar and near just to see poor Sidney send us to the electric chair. But through the great reprise, the judge, he said he's going to the penitentiary instead. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of scripture. Notice this, spare the rod and spoil the child. It don't read like that in the Bible, but there's a whole lot of saying like that. Proverbs 13th chapter and the 24th verse, he that spares his rod hates his son, for he that loves him chastens him betimes. The righteous eats to the satisfying of his soul, but the belly of the wicked shall want. in Proverbs 19th chapter and the 18th verse, chasten thy son, for there is hope, and let not thy rod spare for his crying. There are many devices in a man's heart. Nevertheless, the counsel of the Lord that shall stand. The desire of a man is his kindness, and a poor man is better than a liar. The fear of the Lord tends to life, and he that hates it shall abide satisfied. He shall not be visited with evil. How great are his signs, and how mighty are his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his dominion is from generation to generation. This is my commandment, that ye love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Ye are my friends if ye do whatsoever I command you. Reads like this: if ye shall ask anything in my name, I will do it. John chapter 14 and verse 15, if ye love me, keep my commandments. Someday sorrow should come your way, perhaps tomorrow it may. If steps should falter and heed day, just go to Jesus and hear him say, walk with me, my son, my way is brighter. Talk with me, my son, load will be lighter. I'll help you travel the way I plan, and safely lead you to heaven's land. Is your heart breaking almost in two, and you don't know just what to do? Just go to Jesus, your load he'll bear, for he is waiting, you're all to share. Walk with me, my son, my way is brighter. Talk with me, my son, load will be lighter. I'll help you travel the way I plan, and safely lead you to heaven.